I think the institutional adoption is happening now. A lot of smart institutions are saying, let me get long this thing. I think it pays to be early in Bitcoin, and I think we're still early in Bitcoin.
Bitcoin price is surging as BlackRock's Bitcoin ETF sees its highest inflows in months. This is because state pension funds are now buying Bitcoin. The state of Wisconsin Investment Board invests nearly $100 million in BlackRock's spot Bitcoin ETF. Eric Balchunas, the senior ETF analyst for Bloomberg, shares why pensions buying Bitcoin is significant. Pensions are probably the hardest investor type to land, says Eric Balchunas, a Bloomberg Intelligence senior ETF analyst, who likened it to landing a sailfish, which I guess is a big deal. Pensions are very picky. They have access to everything, and usually it takes a while for them to bite, Balchunas said. And so the fact that they bit so quickly, it's a good sign. To me, it's more of a testament that BlackRock's ETF got so liquid so quickly. That really, in my opinion, opened it up to anyone, because advisors will bite on lesser traded stuff and retail will bite on anything, but institutions, they've got to be liquid. It's really, I think, a testament to the volume that BlackRock's ETF was able to produce that made the institution probably comfortable. Balchunas added that the idea that pension plans would use the Bitcoin ETF, I think, is also a big win for ETFs, he says. Anthony Scaramucci, founder of Skybridge Capital, explains why institutional adoption like this is a big deal.
I think the institutional adoption is happening now. The state of Wisconsin announced, we expect other pension funds to announce, and of course, Bitcoin now has the regulatory approval. And I think that was the rate limiting step for a lot of these large scale institutions. And just remember, if you're not long Bitcoin, you're possibly short Bitcoin in the sense that if you believe, and I think BlackRock has more or less said this, that this will be part of a long-term tactical asset allocation strategy for institutional investors, then at some point you've got to get long Bitcoin. Is it 1% of Bitcoin, 1.5% Bitcoin? I don't know. So a lot of smart institutions are saying, let me get long this thing before it becomes part of a total tactical asset allocation index. And I think that's starting to happen now, and that's very good for Bitcoin.
Taking a look at the data for all ETFs, the net Bitcoin ETF flows are back to flowing in the positive direction. People are buying Bitcoin through these ETFs. Institutions are buying Bitcoin through these ETFs. Just in, 937 financial firms disclosed spot Bitcoin ETF holdings in Q1 of 2024. Gold ETFs just had 95 firms invested in the first quarter. Even Morgan Stanley disclosed that they own Bitcoin through their Bitcoin ETF exposure. In fact, confirming 243 million in Bitcoin through GBTC. Remember when we told you this at the beginning of the year? Jamie Dimon, the CEO of JP Morgan Chase, going on TV, fudding Bitcoin? We asked you, what would Jamie Dimon do if he wanted to buy a lot of Bitcoin? He'd go on CNBC and trash it. He'd say it's going to zero. The price would dip and he would buy. That's not illegal.
And then there's one which does nothing. I call it the pet rock, the Bitcoin or something like that. And so on the Bitcoin, there's, first of all, and I'm not trying to make a joke here. There are use cases, AML, fraud, anti-money laundering, tax avoidance, trafficking. Those are real use cases, and you see it being used for hundreds, maybe 50, $100 billion a year for that. That is the end use case. Everything else is people train among themselves. My personal advice is you don't get involved.
What do you make of the other firms, the BlackRocks of the world that obviously, and Larry Fink changed his view of this, obviously. Yeah. And maybe he changed his view because you think he genuinely believes in Bitcoin or believed it because he thinks that there's a marketplace for it and he wants to be part of that market. But what do you think of there's about a dozen big financial companies, Fidelity included.
Number one, I don't care.
Sure, buddy. Sure. It's just amazing the institutional perception shift that we have seen and are currently seeing around Bitcoin. The CEO of Bitwise Investment said this. First, they said it's only crazy internet people that own Bitcoin. Then they said it's only retail that owns Bitcoin. Now they see over 500 massive wealth firms, banks, and institutional investors bought Bitcoin in the first 2.5 months of the Bitcoin ETF's history. I wonder what they'll say next. And Anthony Scaramucci kind of echoes this point, saying when Skybridge announced their position in Bitcoin years ago, institutions didn't like that he did that. And he kind of talks about that shift because now they're into it.
Well, I've been in trouble on this because Skybridge announced our Bitcoin position in November of 2020. And a lot of institutions, wirehouses, they didn't like it. They didn't like the position. It's 4 years later. Now these very same wirehouses are adopting the position and are getting long the ETF, or at least allowing their financial advisors to recommend the ETF. And so, sometimes when you're early, you get a lot of bumps and scrapes, but I think it pays to be early in Bitcoin, and I think we're still early in Bitcoin.
Hey, real quick, you should join us at Bitcoin Conference in Nashville this year. 10% off if you use the code Altcoin Daily. Link and details in the description. This is the biggest Bitcoin conference in the world. I think this is going to be their biggest year ever. I love the fact that this is in Nashville this year. If you want to be part of the culture, celebrate Bitcoin with like-minded people, and hang out with us, join us at Bitcoin Conference Nashville. 10% off. Use the code Altcoin Daily. Link and details in the description. I hope to see you there. So, 150,000 Bitcoin price prediction by end of year. Remember when Tom Lee on CNBC made this prediction?
I said 75. What did you say to me?
I think it's, could be as high as 150,000 this year.
So double what I thought was.
Yeah.
150,000, so we're tripling at this point.
Yeah, because you've got demand improving with the ETF, and you have the supply shrinking with the halvening. And if monetary policy eases, which we expect, that's supportive of risk assets. And Bitcoin's holding up. That's another reason why I don't think a drawdown is going to start that soon. Bitcoin's been rallying the last couple of weeks.
Are you in the camp of this is like a $500,000 valued
over the next
over 5 years? Are you?
Yeah, it is sound money.
Anthony Scaramucci believes that Tom Lee is right, and Bitcoin does have a strong chance of hitting $150,000 before 2025. Make sure you subscribe for daily crypto content. We keep you informed on crypto markets on a daily basis. Smash the like button, support the channel, listen.
If they're really, if there's 21 million and it's going to eventually have some percentage of what the gold market is, why it should be, Tom Lee says 150 by the end of the year. It seems like if that is a given, that it should be moving up even more quickly.
To get it for a second, let's say gold is $16 trillion,
right?
And let's say Tom Lee is wrong by half, which I don't think he is, and I appreciate him coming to my book party last night, but I think Tom Lee's going to be right, but just if Bitcoin got to $8 trillion.
Was it the coiffed Tom Lee, or was it the wild Tom Lee?
Because it was a little wild.
When he comes on here, you never know. It could be.
But he's an incredibly Zen-like guy.
He's so smart. I know.
Doesn't have your or my emotional wavelength, Joe. We have a tendency to sign and co-sign.
Our product that we have in the hair.
No. And I need more product lately, Joe. Not less product, more product.